The real question here is the administration proceeding in good faith, or is it, as some have suggested, proceeding on a fraudulent basis for God knows what nefarious motives? I don't think that there is evidence of those kind of motives, and I think in particular the minority report from this committee with regard to the contempt proceedings against Mr. Bolton and Ms. Myers make pretty clear that this administration has cooperated with this committee to what I think is a fairly great extent. So really what you're looking for, and I stick by the definition of impeachable offenses that Mr. Pence gave earlier and that I've tried to develop, what you're looking for is an absence of good faith, and I'm not sure you're going to find it. I think, as Mr. Smith said a little bit earlier, this administration has done the best it could in a difficult set of circumstances, and I don't think it gives rise to impeachable offenses.
Chairman Bruce Fein.
Oh, you've elevated me without even an election.
But it's your organization.
I think the title of this hearing speaks volumes about our misconception of the United States, its executive power constitutional limitations. But as Barbara Jordan said, I remember many years ago in the impeachment proceedings of Richard Nixon, the executive has no power that we don't give it. We, the people, is the beginning of the Constitution of the United States. It's not whether there are limits on the executive power, it's whether we've given the executive power to do what he's doing. That is a critical element of thinking properly about our Constitution. Now, it was said by a previous speaker that all presidents have flouted law during wartime, but I think, number one, it's incorrect as a historical matter, but number two, this particular war is different than all others because it's permanent. It will never end. The definition of an end is when there will never be anyone who threatens an American with a terrorist incident in any way in the Milky Way. No one has even conceived of a benchmark that says the war is over. So this is permanent war. Exactly what James Madison said was inconsistent with freedom. And with regard to presidents who spied, it's certainly true that they spied without warrants and had abuses. That's what led to the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, precisely what Liz Holtzman explained. It's one thing for a president to act when there's no express congressional prohibition. It's quite another to say, we don't care what Congress has said, the law is irrelevant to me, I can act on my own initiative. The last thing I'd like to say is that with regard to the necessity of impeachment, it was Robert Jackson, our prosecutor at Nuremberg, who said, if you have a principle, a precedent that goes unrebuked and it's an abuse, it will lie around like a loaded weapon, ready to be used by any future incumbent who establishes an urgent need. If this president's actions and claims of monarchical power, actually they're super monarchical, because if you examine our Declaration of Independence, the indictment against King George III, this president has claimed far more power than King George III. But if we do not rebuke these powers, they then become precedents that will lie around like loaded weapons, a sword of Damocles over us forever. Then there was also mentioned previously about Caligula. And, well, this president shouldn't be at all associated with that particular emperor. You remember one of his infamies that he placed the laws very high on the walls so no one could see them. And then he could trap them into violations. But we've had testimony before this Congress, Senator Feingold's office, that shows that this administration promulgates executive orders, revokes them in secrecy, and then claims they're classified so we don't know whether they're in existence or not. That really betters the instruction of Caligula. Last, I won't go on further. I do have a book called Constitutional Peril being published next month, and if Liz could promote her book, I think I can follow. Thank you.
Well, I didn't have a copy of it to hold up. I'm so sorry.